Abuja had a way of pretending everything was fine. In the mornings, the city stretched itself awake slowly, wide roads gleaming under the sun, government buildings standing tall and indifferent, the sound of early traffic humming like a promise that today would be productive, orderly, important. From the outside, everything looked controlled. Planned. Clean. But behind the tinted windows of apartments and duplexes, behind polite smiles and well-ironed clothes, people hid things. Big things. If you stood outside the white duplex at number 14, Gorimpa Estate, you would think it was the home of a happy couple. A respectable couple. The kind that waved politely at neighbors and attended weddings together, smiling for photos that would later be posted with captions like, "Grateful for love" or "God is good." That was where Daniel Okoye lived with his wife, Amoka Okoye. And for years, that was enough of a story. Daniel was 36, tall, soft-spoken, and methodical in the way he lived his life. He worked as a senior procurement officer for a private construction firm that handled government contracts. It wasn't flashy, but it paid well enough to afford the house, the Toyota Camry, and the steady rhythm of middle-class comfort. He believed in structure. In plans. In doing things the right way. Amoka, his wife of 7 years, was different. She was warmth and laughter. Expressive hands. A voice that rose and fell like music when she spoke. She worked as a brand consultant and social media manager for small businesses, which meant she was always on her phone, always responding to messages, always working. Daniel admired that about her. At least, he used to. On most evenings, Daniel came home around 7:30 p.m. Abuja traffic made sure of that. He would park the car carefully, lock it twice, and step into the house with the quiet relief of a man returning to safety. Amoka usually greeted him with a smile. "How was work?" she would ask. "Tiring," he'd say, loosening his tie. "You need to eat." And sometimes, when she was in a good mood, she would hug him from behind while he washed his hands in the kitchen, pressing her cheek against his back, humming softly. Those moments mattered to him. He held on to them like proof. Because lately, though he couldn't explain why, something felt off. It wasn't dramatic. There were no obvious fights, no shouting matches, no sudden coldness. It was subtler than that. Dangerous in its subtlety. Amoka had started pulling away in small ways. She slept later. Stayed longer in the bathroom. Took calls outside. Her laughter, once free and careless, now seemed reserved for moments when Daniel wasn't around. And there was one more thing. Victor. Victor Adeyemi had been Daniel's best friend since university. They met during their second year at the University of Ilorin, bonded over shared lecture notes and shared frustration with life. After graduation, while many friendships faded, theirs survived. Victor moved to Abuja 2 years after Daniel did. At first, he crashed on Daniel's couch while looking for work. Daniel didn't mind. That was what brothers did. Victor eventually found his footing, real estate consulting, flexible hours, good money when deals came through. He was charming in a way Daniel was not. Confident. Loud. The kind of man who filled a room without trying. When Daniel introduced Victor to Amoka years ago, he had felt proud. "This is my guy," Daniel had said. "The one I told you about." Victor smiled at Amoka for a second longer than necessary. "So this is the woman who stole you from the rest of us?" Amoka laughed. That was all it was. Just laughter. Back then. Over time, Victor became a regular presence in their lives. Sunday visits. Late-night football debates. Occasional business advice. Sometimes, when Daniel was stuck at work, Victor would stop by to drop something off for Amoka or keep her company until Daniel returned. Daniel trusted him completely. Why wouldn't he? Victor had been there when Daniel's father died. He was there at the wedding. He was the one who stood beside Daniel, smiling proudly, as Daniel said his vows. And Amoka. Amoka always spoke kindly of Victor. "Your friend is funny," she once said. "Your friend is very confident. Your friend knows how to talk." Daniel never questioned it. He didn't need to. After all, no one needs to know everything, right? It started with a phone. Daniel wasn't the type to check his wife's phone. He believed trust was sacred. Once broken, it could never be rebuilt the same way. He had told himself that from the beginning of their marriage. So when Amoka's phone buzzed on the dining table one Thursday evening while she was in the shower, he didn't look at it. Not immediately. The vibration was persistent. One buzz. Then another. Then another. Daniel sighed, stood up, and picked the phone, not to read the message, but to see who was calling. Maybe it was work. Maybe it was urgent. The screen lit up. V red heart. Daniel froze. The name alone wouldn't have bothered him, if not for the heart emoji. Victor. He told himself not to overthink it. People saved contacts in strange ways. It meant nothing. It had to mean nothing. The phone stopped buzzing. A few seconds later, another notification appeared. A message preview flashed briefly before disappearing. "Did you delete it?" Daniel felt a strange tightening in his chest. He placed the phone back on the table like it was hot, like it might burn him if he held it too long. When Amoka came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, humming softly, Daniel was sitting quietly, staring at nothing. "Who was that?" she asked casually, reaching for her phone. "Your phone rang," Daniel replied. "I didn't check it." She picked it up too quickly. "Oh. Probably work," she said, already scrolling, already typing. Daniel nodded. But something had shifted. That night, he couldn't sleep. Amoka slept beside him, breathing evenly, her back turned to him. Daniel stared at the ceiling, replaying the image of the heart emoji over and over in his mind. Victor red heart. It didn't make sense. And yet, it did. In the weeks that followed, Daniel started noticing patterns. Amoka began mentioning Victor more often. Victor said this place is a good investment. Victor thinks we should change the sitting room curtains. Victor is organizing a small get-together next weekend. Each time, Daniel responded normally. He smiled. He nodded. He said nothing. But inside, something was growing. A quiet discomfort. A whisper that refused to be ignored. One Saturday afternoon, Daniel came home earlier than expected. A project meeting had been cancelled, and he decided to surprise Amoka. He packed quietly. As he walked toward the front door, he heard laughter from inside. Amoka's laughter. And another voice. Victor's. Daniel paused. It was nothing, he told himself. Victor visited all the time. There was nothing wrong with that. He opened the door. The living room fell silent. Amoka was sitting on the arm of the sofa. Victor stood too close to her. Too close for comfort. They both turned toward Daniel at the same time, surprise flashing across their faces. "Oh. You're back early," Amoka said quickly. "Guy." Victor laughed, stepping back. "You didn't tell me you were closing early today." Daniel smiled. Or at least, he tried to. "Meeting was cancelled," he said. "What's going on?" "Just talking," Amoka replied. Victor nodded. "Just gist." Daniel nodded back. But something in the air felt wrong. Too heavy. Too careful. Later that night, as Daniel lay awake again, one thought kept repeating in his mind. If nothing is happening, why does it feel like everything is being hidden? The truth about betrayal is that it doesn't arrive suddenly. It seeps in. It hides in small gestures, in delayed replies, in laughter that stops too quickly, in secrets disguised as privacy. And often, the people involved convince themselves with the same dangerous sentence: no one needs to know. Daniel used to believe that love announced its troubles loudly. He believed in arguments that shook walls, in slammed doors, in angry words spoken and regretted. He believed problems showed themselves clearly, like warning signs on the road. What he was learning, slowly, painfully, was that real danger moved quietly. It whispered. Amoka changed her routine without announcing it. She started going to the gym in the evenings instead of mornings. She said traffic was better then. Daniel nodded and adjusted. He always adjusted. Sometimes she returned home glowing, energetic, humming to herself as she dropped her bag and headed for the shower. Other times she came back withdrawn, phone clutched tightly in her hand, replying messages even while Daniel spoke to her. "Are you listening?" he asked one evening. Yes, she replied quickly. "Sorry, work." He didn't push. He never pushed. Daniel had been raised to believe that a man who questioned too much was insecure. That trust meant silence. That suspicion was a weakness. So when Victor's name began appearing more often on Amoka's phone, Daniel trained himself not to look. But the mind notices what the heart fears. One Friday night, Victor invited Daniel out for drinks. "Just us guys," he said over the phone. "It's been a while." Daniel hesitated. He was tired. Work had drained him. But something in Victor's tone, almost eager, made him agree. They met at a lounge in Wustuu, one of those places with dim lights and soft music, where conversations felt private even when they weren't. Victor arrived first. "You're late," Victor said with a grin. "Traffic," Daniel replied, sitting down. They ordered drinks. Beer for Daniel. Whiskey for Victor. For a while, they talked about nothing. Football. Politics. Money. The usual safe topics men hid behind. Then Victor leaned back in his chair and sighed. "Marriage is not easy," he said suddenly. Daniel looked at him. "Who said it was?" Victor laughed softly. "Guy, sometimes I look at you and I wonder how you do it." "Do what?" "Stay calm. Steady. Like nothing ever shakes you." Daniel smiled faintly. "Things shake me. I just don't show it." Victor nodded slowly, swirling his drink. "That's dangerous too, you know." "How?" "When people don't know what you're feeling, they start filling the gaps themselves." Daniel frowned. "What are you talking about?" Victor raised his hands. "Nothing. Just thinking out loud." They fell into silence. Daniel watched Victor closely. There was something restless about him that night. His eyes darted too often. His laughter came too late. "You're seeing someone?" Daniel asked casually. Victor hesitated for half a second too long. "Nothing serious." Daniel didn't miss it. "Good," he said. "You deserve peace." Victor smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. That night, Daniel returned home around midnight. The house was quiet. Amoka was asleep, or pretending to be. He lay beside her, listening to her breathing, wondering how two people could share a bed and still be so far apart. He reached for her hand. She stiffened slightly before relaxing again. Daniel withdrew. The first real crack came on a Sunday. Sunday had always been their day. Church in the morning. Lunch afterward. Quiet rest in the afternoon. Sometimes a visit from Victor or other friends, sometimes just the two of them. That Sunday, Amoka insisted on staying back from church. "I'm tired," she said. "You go ahead." Daniel studied her face. She avoided his eyes. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yes," she said quickly. Just tired. Daniel went alone. During the sermon, he couldn't concentrate. His phone buzzed once in his pocket. Then again. He didn't check it until after the service. A message from Victor. Is Amoka at home? Daniel stared at the screen. Why would Victor ask that? He replied after a moment. Yes. Why? The reply came quickly. Just checking. Wanted to drop something. Daniel's fingers trembled slightly as he typed. What thing? There was a pause this time. Longer. Something for you. Daniel locked his phone. His heart began to beat faster. When he returned home, the house felt different. Quieter. Like something had been disturbed and carefully put back. Amoka was in the kitchen, cooking. She smiled too brightly. How was church? Fine, Daniel replied. Victor texted me. Her hand paused mid-stir. Just for a second. Oh, she said. About what? He said he wanted to drop something. He shrugged. Probably business stuff. Daniel nodded. But he noticed the way her fingers tightened around the spoon. That night, Daniel couldn't stop thinking. He replayed moments in his head like scenes from a film he had ignored too long. Victor sitting too close. Amoka laughing too freely. Late night calls. The heart emoji. Did you delete it? His chest ached. At 2:17 a.m., while Amoka slept, Daniel did something he never thought he would do. He reached for her phone. It was unlocked. His hands shook as he opened her messages. He told himself he would stop if he didn't see anything suspicious. He told himself he didn't want to know. But curiosity and fear are powerful partners. He scrolled. Work messages. Friends. Family. Then Victor's name. Victor read heart. Daniel opened the chat. At first, it seemed harmless. Jokes. Memes. Voice notes. But as he scrolled further back, the tone changed. You shouldn't have stayed that long today. I couldn't help it. What if he noticed? He didn't. He never does. Daniel's throat tightened. He scrolled faster. Next time, we'll be more careful. No one needs to know. Promise. I promise. Daniel dropped the phone. His ears rang. His vision blurred. Beside him, Amoka slept peacefully. The woman he loved. The woman he trusted. The woman who had been sharing secrets with his best friend. And still, Daniel did not confront her. Not that night. He lay there until morning, staring at the ceiling, his heart breaking silently, piece by piece. Because knowing was one thing. Catching them was another. After the truth settles in your bones, anger doesn't come first. Shock does. Daniel went through his days like a man underwater. Sounds were muffled. Faces blurred. Time lost its shape. He smiled when required. He answered questions automatically. He drove to work, attended meetings, signed documents, yet felt like he was watching someone else live his life. He did not tell anyone. Not his siblings in Enugu. Not his mother. Not even God. Some truths felt too heavy to share. So he waited. Amoka noticed the change. Are you okay? She asked one evening as they ate dinner in silence. Daniel looked up at her. Her face was open, concerned, almost tender. Yes, he said. Just tired. She studied him for a moment longer, then nodded. Work has been stressful for everyone, she said. If she felt guilt, she hid it well. Victor, on the other hand, became unusually attentive. He called Daniel more often. Invited him out. Asked after his work, his health, his mood. It felt like compensation. Or control. Daniel answered politely. Calmly. As if nothing had changed. Inside, he was watching everything. He began noticing the details he once ignored. The way Amoka dressed more carefully on days she said she was meeting a client. The way she wore perfume even when she claimed she would be indoors all day. The way Victor stopped coming around as often, but when he did, he avoided eye contact. And the messages. Daniel didn't check her phone again. Once was enough. The words were burned into his memory. No one needs to know. The phrase haunted him. Did that include him? One Thursday, Daniel took the day off without telling Amoka. He said nothing. Dressed normally. Left the house at the usual time. But instead of driving to the office, he parked a few streets away and waited. At 10:42 a.m., Amoka stepped out of the house. She was dressed carefully. Not office careful. Something softer. Simpler. Dangerous. She got into a ride-hailing car. Daniel followed at a distance. The car moved through Gwarimpa, then onto the express road, heading toward the city center. Daniel's palms sweated as he drove. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure other drivers could hear it. The car stopped at a serviced apartment complex in Metoma. Daniel parked across the street. He watched. Minutes passed. Then another car pulled up. Victor stepped out. Daniel's chest tightened. Victor didn't knock. He didn't hesitate. He walked in like he belonged there. Daniel sat frozen. The world didn't end. The sky didn't fall. Abuja traffic continued to flow. People laughed. Vendors shouted. Inside Daniel, something collapsed quietly. He stayed there for 2 hours. When Amoka finally emerged, her hair was slightly disheveled. Her smile was relaxed in a way Daniel hadn't seen in months. Victor walked her to the car. They stood close. Too close. Victor said something. Amoka laughed. Then, quick, familiar, he kissed her forehead. Daniel looked away. He drove home before she did. Sat on the edge of the bed. Held his head in his hands. He felt foolish. Not because he had been cheated on, but because he had trusted so completely. That night, Amoka came home cheerful. She cooked his favorite meal. She laughed at his jokes. She touched his arm. Daniel let her. He didn't know why. Maybe he wanted to understand how someone could betray you so deeply and still look you in the eye. As they lay in bed, Amoka spoke softly. Do you ever think about how people hide things? She asked. Daniel turned to her slowly. What do you mean? She stared at the ceiling. Like, everyone has secrets. Some things are better left unsaid. Daniel swallowed. Why? She hesitated. Because knowing everything can ruin everything. Daniel studied her face in the dark. Some things deserve the light, he said. She didn't reply. Victor called the next day. Guy, let's hang out tomorrow, he said. Just us. Daniel agreed. They met at Victor's apartment. Victor offered him a drink. Daniel declined. You've changed, Victor said lightly. So have you, Daniel replied. Victor laughed nervously. Life. They sat in silence. Victor cleared his throat. I just wanted to say. I value you. Our friendship. Daniel nodded. I do too. Victor relaxed slightly. Good. Because things can get complicated in this city. Daniel met his eyes. They already have. Victor froze. The air thickened. What do you mean? Victor asked. Daniel stood up. I mean be careful, he said calmly. Not everything hidden stays hidden. Victor forced a smile. You're talking in riddles now. Daniel walked toward the door. As he reached for the handle, Victor spoke. Daniel. He turned. Victor's face was pale. If you ever hear something strange, just know. Daniel cut him off. No one needs to know, he said quietly. Victor's face drained of color. Daniel left. He didn't cry. He didn't shout. He didn't confront Amoka. Not yet. Because Daniel had made a decision. He would not accuse. He would not guess. He would catch them. The days blurred. Daniel moved through Abuja like a ghost. Each familiar street, each shopping mall, each cafe they had once visited as a couple now felt foreign. Even their duplex felt different. Strangers eyes seemed to watch him from every corner, as if the walls themselves were whispering the truth he refused to say aloud. But Daniel had a plan. He didn't know exactly when it would unfold. He only knew it would. It was a Thursday evening. Amoka had told him she had a late client meeting. Victor was walking nearby, she had said. The timing was convenient. Predictable. Perfect. Daniel stayed home. The living room lights were dim, the TV off. He sat quietly on the sofa, pretending to read a book while his mind replayed the conversations, the laughter, the messages, and the heart emoji burned into his memory. At 8:02 p.m., he heard the soft click of the gate opening. Not Amoka's car. A few seconds later, the car in question was parked just outside the duplex, engine off. Victor. Daniel's heart thumped, but he remained still. He heard the door open. The soft padding of shoes. Then, laughter. Too familiar. Too intimate. He rose slowly and tiptoed toward the living room window. Through the blinds, he saw them. Amoka and Victor were standing in the kitchen. Amoka was laughing at something Victor had said. Victor's hand rested on her shoulder. Just resting, or so it seemed. Then it happened. Victor leaned closer. Their lips met. Daniel froze. Every memory, every trust, every moment of blind loyalty crashed down around him. The world outside the window, the quiet Abuja streets, the streetlights, the occasional horn, ceased to exist. There was only this, the betrayal he had already suspected, now undeniable. He did not shout. He did not break in. He left the duplex quietly. He drove aimlessly through the city, hands gripping the steering wheel, his mind alternating between rage, despair, and numbness. By the time he returned, Amoka was sitting on the sofa, phone in hand, smiling at something Victor had sent. "Hey," she said casually. Daniel stood at the door. He looked at her, at the smile, at the calm demeanor that had haunted him for weeks. "Hey," he said, voice low, quiet. She froze, sensing something was off. Daniel didn't speak for a moment. He walked to the center of the room. "Amoka, why?" he finally asked. Her eyes widened, just slightly. I don't know what you mean," she said, voice trembling a little. Daniel's chest tightened. He remembered the messages. He remembered Victor's words. "No one needs to know." "I saw everything," he said. "All of it." Amoka's face went pale. For the first time, the mask cracked. Victor stepped forward from the corner, hands raised slightly. "Daniel, I..." "Don't," Daniel said. "Just, don't." Amoka's lips trembled. "Daniel, I..." "No," he said again. "There's nothing to say." "You knew." Victor knew. "And for how long?" "Months," Amoka whispered. I didn't want you to know." Daniel laughed softly, but it had no humor. "No one needs to know." "Right. That was the plan." Victor's face darkened. "Daniel, it wasn't supposed to." Daniel turned on him, ice cold. It wasn't supposed to what? Get caught. Hurt me. Destroy everything we built. Victor opened his mouth, then closed it. No words could fix this. Amoka tried to reach for Daniel, but he stepped back. I loved you, he said, voice breaking. I trusted you. I told myself it was nothing, that I was imagining things. And all this time, you lied. Together. Silence followed. Heavy. Suffocating. For the first time, Daniel felt free. Not from pain. Not from heartbreak. But from the weight of pretending. From the suffocating trust he had given blindly. Amoka's tears fell freely now. Victor's jaw was tight, anger and guilt mixed. Daniel walked to the door. He paused. You wanted this to be hidden. You wanted it quiet. But nothing stays hidden forever. No one needs to know, until they do. He stepped out into the night, leaving the house, the marriage, and the betrayal behind. That night, Daniel didn't call his friends. He didn't call family. He didn't speak to anyone. He walked through the streets of Abuja, the city lights blurring into rivers of orange and white. He thought of the times he had smiled, laughed, loved freely. He thought of how those moments had been used against him in silence. And then, for the first time in weeks, he breathed. Pain doesn't end with revelation. But clarity does. He knew what he had to do next. Not vengeance. Not confrontation. Not begging. Just living. And making sure that no one ever hurts him like that again. The city of Abuja never looked the same to Daniel. He walked through familiar streets with unfamiliar eyes. The same white duplex in Gwarimpa now seemed foreign, sterile. The laughter he once associated with comfort and love now echoed in his memory as something dangerous, something deceptive. He didn't return to the house. Not immediately. Not yet. The first morning after the discovery, Daniel sat at a small roadside cafe in Wustu, sipping coffee he didn't taste. He watched commuters rush past, drivers honking, vendors calling, the usual chaos of Abuja life continuing around him. And he realized, the world didn't stop for his pain. It never did. He pulled out his phone. No calls, no messages. Not from Amoka. Not from Victor. Not from anyone. He felt relief. Because for the first time in months, he didn't have to pretend. He didn't have to wonder. He didn't have to live in the suffocating tension of lies. Daniel returned to the duplex a few days later. Amoka was there, silent, remorseful, waiting. Victor had left the city for a week, supposedly a business trip, but Daniel didn't care. He confronted Amoka quietly. I'm not here for excuses, he said. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here because this house, our life, is over. Her tears fell freely. Daniel. No, he said firmly. I need space. Time. To remember who I am without you. She tried to speak again, but he shook his head. He didn't hate her. Not exactly. But love and trust had been severed in a way words couldn't repair. Daniel changed the locks that day. It was a small, symbolic act, but it mattered. He didn't want confrontation anymore. He didn't want arguments. He didn't want lingering shadows of betrayal. The next few weeks were lonely. Daniel stayed with a cousin in Upper while he figured out his next steps. He focused on walk, long drives, and jogging through the quiet streets of Metoma. He reconnected with friends he had neglected. He learned to enjoy his own company again, to laugh without worry, to eat alone without feeling the absence as a weight. Most importantly, he learned to trust himself again. One evening, while walking along the Millennium Park, Daniel thought about the phrase that had haunted him for months. No one needs to know. He realized now that it wasn't a phrase meant to protect anyone. It was a sentence meant to hide selfishness, to cover betrayal, to protect the guilty while the innocent suffered. He smiled faintly. That secret power no longer held sway over him. Amoka tried calling him once, weeks later. Daniel, please. He ignored it. Victor sent a message. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Can we talk? Daniel deleted it. No confrontation. No revenge. No drama. Just silence. And peace. Months later, Daniel moved to a new apartment in Jobi. He bought a small car, a Honda Civic this time. He decorated his space simply, with warm colors, minimal distractions, and photographs of trips he had taken before. He dated again, slowly, cautiously. He learned to laugh, to trust carefully, to love without giving up his own strength. He walked the streets of Abuja, no longer haunted by betrayal, but tempered by it. Stronger. Wiser. And when someone asked him about Amoka or Victor, he would smile faintly, sip his coffee, and say nothing. Because some truths do not need retelling. Some pain does not need validation. Daniel had learned the hardest lesson of all. Some things cannot be undone. Some betrayals cannot be forgiven. But life goes on. And that is enough. The city moved around him. Traffic hummed. Lights glimmered. Vendors shouted. Life continued. And Daniel. He walked forward, finally free. If this story is in line with you, like and subscribe to the channel for more stories on betrayal. Also comment with any storyline you would like us to create.